Okay.
Okay, I call this meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to look at the meeting, the minutes from the August 18th meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Any changes or corrections?
No.
No, okay. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up is upcoming events.
Our next event would be Joe's football event next Thursday, the 23rd.
Okay, how's that going, Joe?
Very well. We're all set.
Okay.
The only, I have to touch base with John. I'll do that sometime tomorrow.
Okay, you were breaking up. Could you repeat that?
I said I'll be reaching out to speak with John regarding the tents and placements of logistics, but outside of that, we're good to go.
Okay,
And I did reach out to Jeff Shane the other day just to get that in motion. So he's aware that he needs to put the tents up those days. We have the location you talked about last week, so that's what she said.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I think it's going to be a great thing for the long haul. And then we can do things like this to bring a different mix of people into the Heritage Center.
okay, great. Do you need anything from us?
Not really. I mean, there's not a whole lot there. I'm going to go in this weekend and probably take some pictures for the PowerPoint presentation from the existing yearbooks that we have and the existing print material.
Okay,
But outside of that, there's not a whole lot to do. There's a video that I did for the Hall of Fame committee, I guess about 7 years ago, that outlined the first 50 years of North Allegheny athletics. So there's some information there. I just need, I'll probably spend a little time Sunday afternoon putting together my PowerPoint and getting ready to go.
Okay.
We have all the panelists, they're all ready to go. Bob Miller, used to be a head coach at North Allegheny. We have Kreutzer, who was an assistant. We have Ron Dominic, who used to be an assistant. We have Jack McCurry, who used to coach at North Hills. So it's a pretty good panel, and it should be rather colorful banter after the presentation.
okay, great. Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to you, Joe, to get some of those specifics so I can put it on the Facebook just to, you know.
Okay, well, I think John has a copy of the flyer. Do you not?
Okay.
I have the flyer and I also have a graphic I made too, so.
Okay, that's great. Then we're good to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
The next event after that would be September 30th. Jim Haller's coming back to do his baseball presentation. Have we re-advertised for that yet, John?
Yeah, that's begun.
Okay, great.
I put it on Facebook too.
Oh, good. Okay.
Do we need additional help with that? I've been trying my best to come to each one of these events.
Yeah, thank you. We have 3 volunteers and then me, so 4. So that seems totally adequate. I do have 2 volunteers for your event on the 23rd. I was planning on being there also, but do you think we need more than that?
No, I think we're going to be fine. Quite frankly,
Okay.
I think we're going to have 30 people inside of the center for the presentation. I think most of the parents are going to be in and out of the center after the presentation, and then they're having their tailgate party out in the parking lot.
You can have to excuse me for 1 minute, okay?
Okay. And I know we have the NA 1980 reunion. People are coming on October 9th.
Don't we have one before then?
They rescheduled,
Okay.
so they're going to wait till next year to do it.
And what is the nature of October 9th? Is it like 30 people coming or?
It's a reunion. I mean,
It's just a drop-in thing, so I really,
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how many people are gonna come.
you get it.
But I'm gonna man the event because they're doing a 5K walk or run or something in North Park in the morning, so they wanted us to be open in the morning, so I'm gonna go in and open the center up.
Okay.
So,
Great.
okay, do we have, well, we're not gonna go to the Notorious North Hills yet, so
Okay.
I think that's the end of our upcoming events, isn't it, John?
For now, yeah.
For now, okay. All right, the proposal for electric signage. Kevin?
Joe, do you want me to just talk a little bit about what I had presented to you, and then you can talk about where you're taking it?
Sure.
Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Joe, Bob, and I met virtually, I think, last week. And I had gathered some information from one of the vendors that we worked with, Stewart Signs. I think John shared a PDF with you. I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at it. But what we were looking at is just LED or electronic signage that would be housed in something that would look like the Heritage Center, that would be in keeping with the Heritage Center. There are various sizes for these units, and also whether they are two-sided screens or one-sided. So the estimates that I got from the vendor were just sort of those variables, and some of the pictures that were included in there were of similar type signs according to the vendor that to what we were talking about. And then I shared this with Bob and Joe, and he discussed building upon what I presented, looking at this in a little different direction from more of, I think, an entire McCandless perspective. And kick it over to you, Joe.
Okay. Kevin, thank you so much for the information that you put together. Really appreciate it. We had the opportunity to meet with John and with Bob Grimm. And I had a different take on it, and I put a different spin on it this time around. Signage isn't only necessary at the Heritage Center. I approached it from a different level, and I believe that we need 3 different signs or 3 different message boards throughout the municipality. One being at the Heritage Center, and then the other sites, one could be on Route 19 on Memorial Drive, one could be at Rave Cinemas, or the township can do whatever they want to do. But I think that we are in dire need of better communication within the township. I spoke with Jerry Hoffman, who is the chairman of the McCandless Industrial Development Authority. And Jerry's on board. The other thing that I've begun to do is to talk to people throughout the municipality as far as sponsorships. Now, sponsorships may scare a lot of people, but if you look at what Cranberry has done and some of the other municipalities have done, they put small signs, small placards on the base of the signage that would be throughout the municipality. To Kevin's point, I believe that we need 2 double-sided message boards. One, going either direction of the roadways that we would house. Where we left it was Bob Grimm had spoken with the director of Public Works, and he and I are supposed to get together this week. As I said at McCandless Days, I had a conversation with Jerry Hoffman, and I shared that discussion with Toby Kordick. And, we're thinking that it wouldn't be that difficult to get sponsorships that, that would pay solely for the signs and for their construction. We believe that it's going to cost somewhere around $100,000 to do 3 of them. That's what I have right now, Diane.
Okay,
There'll be more information forthcoming. And understand, and I hope everybody understands on this call, that this is in its infancy. This thing has gone down in flames 2 different times. But I think that, if we have not only the means to, we have the fashion sense of the signs, I guess, or the ergonomic display of the signs. And then we have a means by which to finance without relying solely on the municipality to provide the funding. I think it's far more palatable to do it that way.
okay. I guess my question would be, where does, we've been talking about a sign for the Heritage Center at the Heritage Center, and now it's grown into 3 signs in 3 separate locations. So I guess I'm wondering what our rule is going to be in this moving forward.
Diane, you've been in politics a long time. Politics as a librarian, you understand if you ask for 3 things, sometimes you got a better chance of getting 1. So that's where we stand. It's not just about the Heritage Center. It's about the municipality. And quite frankly, I'm very hopeful that if we propose 3, that we're going to be given 1.
Oh, okay. Yes,
What's okay?
Toby,
What's okay?
I don't know.
Okay, like we're going, the town has carried money in the budget. I don't know if it's still there. I didn't check who's gonna do that, but Bob would know perhaps. In the capital fund for about $20,000 to $25,000 somewhere we were carrying for gateway signs. There was a lot of discussion. This is about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We carried that a couple of years before I retired. Gateway signs, council thought should be static. Maybe have a solar powered light shining on them. And that's what that money is earmarked for.
Right.
Okay. Joe, you mentioned this to me, there's 2 schools of thought. I mean, it's kind of a marketing tactic to try to ask for more and for less. The thing is, Bob has to help us, which he can right now, Bob, at this point. Where's the town with the philosophy on lighted signage around the town? And any direction there, and then how is it really a good idea to have us the little old Heritage Center sign that we've been trying to get that's sparked this discussion. The idea, the growth I think we've had with the sign by the Heritage Center has been to if additional town events like the Appear on Savvy Citizen, like the policy that the town appears to have already about what the town advertises, so to speak, or allows to be advertised in its media, goes on that sign, perhaps that will help make it more palatable to the town council and to either adjust their policy or fit into their current policy of signage. We know that there was as you said, this has gone down in flames a couple times. The idea being that it's a drive-by, the sign, the location of the sign along the slope of Ingomar Road can be tastefully placed. It's just a matter of how close to the intersection and wave trees on it in a good place so that it's not a distraction. But, so there's several things at work here, so I think we need to know, if Bob, you give us some guidance on where the town might be heading on signage throughout. And then looking at this specific signs, it makes sense to have this one, fall in line, or if it's a package deal with the others, or should it stand alone?
I'll get up here so the mic can pick up
Okay.
for the recording. To Toby's point, I think part of the argument and part of the reason why signage went down in flames, at least back in 2019, shortly after I arrived and we were going through our transition, there were concerns raised about the idea of electronic messaging being adjacent to the Heritage Center, the appearance of one versus the other. Also concerns raised about the distraction to drivers of the electronic sign in the middle of a block, as opposed to potentially being at an intersection where the people are stopped and they can actually see the sign. To Toby's other point, anything that we do will have to be done in accordance with our zoning and signage ordinances. And, we've been talking about that. We internally, the staff, we're aware of what those requirements would be, and we would have to put sizing together and program the displays to make sure that we are complying with those ordinances. The other thing, Joe's idea of having messaging signs throughout the town isn't dissimilar to what my own are. To be frank, I don't know whether it makes more sense to put a static Heritage Center sign in place so that people can see that sign and what the building is that is in keeping, or whether we're confusing the issue, trying to put everything together. I agree with getting the messaging out. My idea is beyond even 3 signs ultimately. And as late as the last 2 or 3 months, as we've been putting together preliminary budgets and incorporating the relief funds and using or getting an idea of how relief funds would be used, we brought up the idea of signage. And I just want you to be aware, we have, the message that we got back when we bring it up is that we need to be funding needs and not wants, and their idea of signage is a want and not a need. I'm more than happy to put together something in the budget and to fund whether it be the static sign for the Heritage Center alone, or whether it be messaging signs similar to what Joe's talking about. I do believe that the idea of sponsorship is one that has to be seriously be considered, but also has to be carefully considered because, we have gotten ourselves into some issues before with sponsorships of things, and we don't want to repeat some of the issues that we've had in the past. The last thing that I wanted to mention at this point is just, we have great numbers for the messaging part, the box. We need, whether it's a combined sign for the Heritage Center or what we do with Joe's idea of messaging throughout the town, we need a complete sign. So we need that idea of the design, how that would work with a message board or whether it would be static. But for me to put something in the budget without having some kind of final firm number. I'm a bit hesitant because I need to be able to tell that story in the budget. You know, Toby has told those stories many more years than I have here. But you know, the first question that I'm sure he was asked in the past, or that I'm asked now, is, you know, what is a total number that we're looking for the cost? And, you know, if we're asking for more than one thing, what is the total overall? And people obviously are going to be interested in what it looks like. So if we have that information available that we can make part of the budget story, that will complete the picture. Any questions from me at this point?
I do. I guess my question is, as the Heritage Center, we've been trying to get a sign for the Heritage Center. If you add in 2 other signs, it seems to me that takes it out of our hands. You know, we represent the Heritage Center. We don't represent. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I completely understand what you're saying.
Do we just stand down at this point, thinking that maybe the township is going to go on with this, or do we continue on our own for our own side? I'm kind of confused.
If you don't mind, can I ask Joe a quick question? Joe, the question, what you discussed with Mr. Rothman
Yes,
on Saturday, was that your concept of the 3 signs throughout, or was that strictly for the Heritage Center?
it was just in general. He is all for the signage for the Heritage Center. He actually liked the idea of signage for the municipality. As you made the point in our meeting, Jerry Hoffman can't do anything until he has numbers and a concept in front of him.
Right. Okay.
You know, to further answer Diane's, question, quite frankly, Diane, none of this is in our control anyway. I mean, we're controlling the ask.
Right.
But, if I honestly think that our concept is stronger if it's part of a larger deal for the entire community. I think that if we're just going to go after monies from the township for a sign for the Heritage Center, you got a chance, but I think the bigger picture is what we need to focus on, because ultimately is going to get us, the Heritage Center, what we want.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I'm not even going to say anything about that, because that could be true. I don't know. I just know that I'm on the board for the Heritage Center, and that's what I'm concerned about. And if someone says, how much is this sign going to cost for the Heritage Center, that's something that's under our control to investigate and put the numbers together for. But it's not under our purview to do that for the whole township, right?
Right.
That's right, absolutely. So my general question then for the FDPC and those interested volunteers at this point in time is the important factor to be able to identify the Heritage Center as the Heritage Center from the road, or however you're going to do it. Or, do you want a sign that would also double as informational, so that
It's informational. It's, I think whether it's on that hillside, whether it's moved up to the corner to address some of the traffic concerns. If it moves up to the corner, if it can say the Heritage Center is within 100 yards of this, which it is, and tonight there is this event happening, or next week there is this event happening. We felt that from the very beginning that we were losing an opportunity, much like a church sign, to say bake sale or bingo this weekend, even at that primary level. And that's why we started by looking at signs with removable letters.
Right,
So all this is that same idea, is that this is a sign that identifies where you are. And it also provides some level of, and it's not going to have, 10 words of text or 10 lines of text. This is going to be very simple
sure.
copy that will help us in our efforts to promote events that are happening, because we constantly hear that people say, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. It's just another medium to get the message across. So having another sign that just says, hey, the Heritage Center is here, we have one now, right? We have some directional sign. But I think what we were always focusing on was getting something that would help identify and promote.
Okay,
And you know what, I think it's also important to understand that our purview is not just the Heritage Center. I mean, the Heritage Center Financial Development and Promotional Committee. And part of promotion is signage. So, I just think that maybe it's a little bit out of our purview, but it's certainly helpful, not just for the Heritage Center, but for the municipality as well.
No, I defer to you, Bob, that would be a municipal decision. We can't make that decision. We
I
can
just-
only,
because location is going to depend, design will be affected by location.
Mhm.
Further away you get from the Heritage Center, the more likely it is, the argument would be, we want consistent signage throughout the town, identifying town of McCandless or whatever. So, I'm thinking that if you do something close that's static, you have a look, an identity. Where if you go to the idea that Joe has, that I've tossed out to the council, you have a townwide network of signage that shows a different identity, part of which, the Heritage Center is included, but you have a town of McCandless identity, you don't have a Heritage Center identity. And I want to be cautious of that with whatever decision is made.
I realize I'm not a member and I'm not a manager anymore, but since I think I can offer some help and some thoughts too, to help my colleague. I think it's really good to hear, because then, we've come, the reason we come down the road about, there's been so much talk amongst those of us who have been involved in the Heritage Center, the FDPC, volunteers and so forth, about some way to see that what this building is. Some people think it's a church. Some people wonder what the heck it is. We didn't know we had a one-room schoolhouse still around here. So a better sign, we have a small sign that we paid like about $100, $150 for, a little wooden sign that says Heritage Center, not visible from the road. The idea was, I'm in the parking lot. Yeah, I've arrived at the Heritage Center, so you see that little sign. That was kind of cool. So what could be, I've done this a long time, like you have, Bob. Maybe it's incremental. So what I'm thinking right now, just to throw out an idea, and first of all, Kevin, what you did to rejuvenate this, these are great quotes. Great quotes. It gives us a really good picture about size of sign.
Mm-hmm.
So one thought would be, the Heritage Center sign is going to have to match the look of the center. The other signs around the town, they have a similar look, probably because there's a lot of bricks left over from that are this tan color town, tan and brown color, at least there were. So that might be whatever look the town comes up with overall. And I think it's a great program to have signs around the town and so forth. So we hate to see this one get lost in the shuffle. So maybe an incremental approach would be the size and the look of the Heritage Center sign would be its own, based again, it's maybe similar but yet unique. It would be the size of a sign to just a static sign. We can start with a static sign at the council as a fallback position. Two-sided, Allegheny, or McCown's Allegheny North Heritage Center. So I like the idea that the $25,000 idea. I think that, Kevin, unless I'm not seeing right, I think that would be visible enough. It would seem like the $28,000
Yeah, the only difference there is an extra foot in width between those two. And then the 14 is the one side's at 3 by 6,
Right.
one side. So if you're
we-
doing
we
two
use
sides,
that- If we use that footprint, so to speak, of a sign, and have a static sign, that size, if the council ultimately says, I think if the FDPC puts a proposal together and you're satisfied with this, is to have, go for a two-sided sign, electronic, you think it's a great idea, the rest of the town activities can take advantage of that. We're trying to just be helpful to everybody in town. We love our heritage, but we also love our future and our present. So if that's not gonna work, let's have a static sign with nice letters on both sides. It says Allegheny, McCann's Allegheny North Heritage Center. And it'd be a big enough sign. And then someday, if it becomes electronic, you can remove that sign and build in the, I hope I'm right. I think I'm right. You can put the electronic one in its place.
I don't think it's that simple, but conceivably,
I don't wanna
I mean,
oversimplify it.
because it's, a lot of electronics.
Well, and I think even thinking it through, depending on how you would place the sign and what you could potentially do it in a way that it is one-sided so that you can see it from the road. Maybe it runs parallel to the road
You do that.
and you have one-sided identifying the Heritage Center and you have the message board, but it would be a little less conspicuous and may be able to fit in better with
We can
the,
get a number on, with some public works help on what a static sign, I like the idea of parallel, I think it's good, because you can put a glance. But that means that sign, I think, will come down someday, and then if there's gonna be an
Yeah.
electronic sign.
Yeah.
In this part of town, at the Heritage Center, sort of
Yeah,
like the Heritage Center.
I think,
That would take its place. But the Heritage Center could use a sign.
yes.
And now, it could have used it 2 or 3 years ago.
Mhm.
That's one thing I think was an oversight, perhaps on my part, and everybody's part, but I'll throw my hat in the ring of that. I wish I'd have thought of it then, and we had a bigger, bolder sign. If we were
Mhm.
doing this, we wouldn't be having this discussion here. in a
Right.
Retroactive fashion. So, I think, I didn't do this too much when I was a manager, but sometimes we managers will give levels in a proposal, in a budget proposal. So I think we maybe have a proposal that shows electronic one, two-sided. Here it goes, have exact location to be
Mhm.
determined, unique look for a Heritage Center, 28.5 plus 6,000 for installation. And then the level 2 sign would be, we really could have, you talk about wants versus needs. The need for the center itself would be to have the sign is visible from the room.
To use Joe's thinking, if we present both, take Joe's thinking, Joe's not there
He
anymore.
disappeared.
And that what Toby is saying, if we go down that road, then we have, option 1 would be a double-sided sign that is perpendicular to the road. And I'm just throwing a number out, it will be $40,000 by the time you get everything done. Yeah. Option 2, parallel to the road and one-sided, and you can do that for 20 to 25,000. It's going
Not even that.
to,
Is
but
is
it's,
that sign
but it-
electronic
then it
or
looks-
static? Is that sign, the second option there, is it electronic or is it static? Is it-
I would make it electronic as the second option, static only as a third option.
There you go. I like that.
And static would, if we don't include, and this is where we started, those many times ago,
Mhm.
Was a static like church sign with letters.
Yeah.
Because if you just make a location sign, then we lose,
You lose the message.
of at least having some
Okay.
message on there.
So if I can get that, the design idea, so we can price that part of it out for the Heritage Center, then we can take that and throw that number into the budget. But, at the end of the day, like Toby experienced and I've experienced in other lifetimes. The council will make those decisions.
And that's no problem. I can contact Stewart Signs because they had given us a price
Mhm.
way back when for us, what a static slash, we're calling a church sign,
Yeah,
with letters. We have the cost for a one-sided sign now.
right.
When we're saying design, at best, where I could help with a rough sketch, but there may be some sort of much more schematics, especially if it's electronic, that would have to be attended to.
Right.
But my understanding always has been that municipality would do the construction of it around.
I mean, the construction work, I'm not concerned about getting done. I'm more concerned about what that looks
Yeah,
like,
the
that
thing-
frame, if you will, around that message board or the static board, but what that frame looks like, how you say Heritage Center, what does that look like? What does
Okay.
that part of the sign look
all
like?
right, that's fine.
It really is important to the FDPC that, I mentioned that bottom line, fallback. Remember Yugo cars? We're going to talk about heritage here. Remember the Yugo, the Yugo thing, you can hardly stand it. So, yeah, that's what I was thinking, if all else fails. But there's no question that I believe that the presentations and all the other ways of the activities that we're going to have, I hope to have even more and more in the center, are going to be benefited by coming attractions kind of stuff.
Because then we can take the same information, take it to the Industrial Development Authority, find out what they're willing to contribute, and that becomes the whole story then. Here are the options, here's what MIDA will contribute, so here's the bottom line number from the town.
That's
Okay.
why Joe, in particular, Joe, that's why I think it serves the FDPC, the Heritage Center best, to go in solo, so that part of this, another element is, we've given our presentation to not just town council, but also to the MIDA. MIDA is committed, that they threw out a ballpark number a couple years ago, $10,000 to work this heritage sign, because they thought that is a good project for them. I don't know if they think it's a good project to contribute more money toward the 100,000. I think that's another debate.
David has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of throw my 2 cents in, and I by no means can speak for council as a whole, but I can give you impressions. I think there's kind of 2 different concepts that have been talked about that are kind of getting conflated within the sign discussion. There's one that's a message board type idea. There's a second that's simply an identification sign. So you have, simply a sign that identifies here's where the Heritage Center is, versus a sign that's a message board sign that talks about events and things like that. For the second type, the first type would have to be located pretty much on premises, because that's identifying here's the Heritage Center. But I think the important part of the sign discussion is more a sign along the lines of the second one, a message board type thing that can convey information. My impression would be that a discussion of that type of board, I don't think that type of signage, because then you're talking about more expensive signage, right? Because it's not simply, it can't be an old style 2 wooden 2x4s, 4x4s in the ground with a wooden sign to keep the aesthetics. It would have to be something more expensive. When you get into that, and given the fact that the Heritage Center is on what I refer to kind of as, and Bob, I think you've used this term before, kind of the town campus, the town hall campus, town of McCandless campus, whatever you want to call it. I think with that, if it's a message board, and again, this is my personal impression, but I think I can say with a certain level of certainty that at least a couple other council members would have the same view, is that a message board of that type, I think you need to have the discussion of how it can tie into other town functions. So Community Day, for example, or the salute, the salute to service, because from my point of view, it wouldn't make sense. I think a message board for Heritage Center events would be helpful, but from my point of view, it wouldn't make sense to have a dedicated message board only for Heritage Center events when the Heritage Center is on the town of McCandless campus. And, when you see those electronic signages, and I know there's different kinds, there's different proposals, but a lot of times it's not a static, when you have a message board like that, it's not a static message. It changes every however many seconds, 10 seconds, 12 seconds, whatever the setting is. I'm sure it's adjustable. And so with that, you can rotate through town of McCandless events, Heritage Center events, library events, and that's leaving aside the single sign versus multiple sign discussion. I would strongly recommend that kind of approach to show you have to keep in mind everything comes from a cost benefit analysis. The only way that the pie increases is by increased revenue, and because we're at a population, we're coming close to our population cap, that's not going to come from increased population for the most part. And we have asks from a lot of different organizations, ones that I'm personally the liaison to or sitting on. And all of those asks have to be weighed against each other. And so, if there's something that's being asked for a capital improvement over here, the council and, well, Bob really, and because Bob brings it to us, but has to go through and say, okay, is this worth not fixing the windows in town hall that are leaking? Those are the kinds of decisions that it has to come down to, because the only other way to increase that pie is to increase taxes. And I can tell you there is zero appetite for that. So I'm just throwing that out there. Again, these are my impressions, and Bob or anyone else, if you have different impressions, feel free to share. But to me, it would make sense to say, to make the ask as the Heritage Center, as a Heritage Center sign, that can be multifunctional, essentially.
That was always our intention, David, that it would be something that would be shared, that it would be in front of the Heritage Center, but.
Yeah, well, and I would make that really clear,
Panelists,
right. And I would make that really clear and say, this isn't just about the Heritage Center, it's all of these different things,
Yeah.
But it would be the way that the Heritage Center could get our messaging across. I would highlight that.
Okay.
I guess is what I'm saying.
That's why the digital option was, we kind of gravitated toward that, because you can change the messaging, like you mentioned, quicker, easier, as opposed to having John walk out with a bag of letters and change the messaging. That's
In
one.
2 feet of snow.
Yeah, in 2 feet of snow. So
Yeah, we had one of those at my library, and I can tell you how unpopular that can become.
Yes.
okay.
Okay. Amy, you had some comments up, but now they've disappeared. Do you have anything you want to jump in with?
That was Carolyn? Carolyn said she had-
Carolyn has left. Yeah, I just wanted to, make sure that it was understood that when we said promote events, it wasn't just programming events, but also our displays, like when we have our specialty displays, that we would be able to list those. And I guess I had a question when we're talking about the electronic sign, and we've talked about funding for the purchase of the sign coming through MIDA and or sponsorships. if it's an electronic sign and that, I think I saw one of the quotes mentioned a cell signal or a mobile signal to be able to update that. Usually that comes with some kind of an annual maintenance fee or agreement for the software and or that cellular signal. So if there's an ongoing annual cost, we need to know what that is and determine who's covering that cost going
In the
forward.
quotes that we had, there was a lifetime wireless data plan provided by Stewart
Okay.
Sign, so that was part of the package. I think
I
you're
missed that.
basically
Okay.
uploading it, wirelessly probably, and it just has a receiver because they're not very high-end complicated graphics. And I think that's built into the capability of it.
I missed the lifetime piece of that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, I think maybe you walk out of here because Bob needs to know what he's going to be seeing from the
Right.
FDPC.
well,
No. I think the discussion is,
Kevin, I think if you can sketch up again what you had envisioned, and then we can start to price that out as far as the framing around the
Okay.
message board, then we can.
I will try and work that up so that it works for all three types of signs.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just pick on a cabinet and work from there, whether it's a static church sign or a two-sided.
Because I
Or
think
one-sided.
that the base essentially would look the same regardless.
Yeah.
So it would just be a matter of material. So,
Yeah,
yeah, if we can do that, then we can start to price the rest of it out.
okay, I'll work that up for next
Okay.
meeting.
Rather than, I really hesitate, I really appreciate, should I go up here? Is it okay if I talk from here?
We can hear you.
I don't, it's public supposed to go up there and talk to Mike. David Smith, David, thank you so much for your advice and insight. I think that knowing that helps that when this proposal goes in, I think you go in with the sign that the FDPC had in mind several years ago, the one that we got a price on, Bob, when you were first arriving on the scene. It's just the kind of David was just talking about. That's been the target, as you said, Diane, for several years now, and have that be the target. And I'm not even sure that the idea that I threw out here 15 minutes ago about putting a static sign up is, I don't think it's a good idea. I would just say go for the sign that you can change, John can change on his phone, or Abby, if she's helping in that role, and whoever is going to be able to update some information. John, of course, has all kinds of things that he'll be able to post on that sign, and that's an enhancement, I think, to convincing council. I would have hoped that it would be, and I think it sounds like it, David's view, at least it is. So I would suggest, Bob, you think I'm off base going for that?
No, I think what I want to be able to do is in my back pocket, have a price for the static sign too. Just so that I could throw that out, and we get something.
Maybe have that as a footnote.
Yeah.
Not really, no, I wouldn't say alternative one, alternative two, because if I'm sitting on town council and,
You're gonna go
you guys are
with
laboring
suspense?
through a 140-page budget, and you see alternative one, alternative two, I've read the budget. We got all these problems, we have all the athletic association, everybody else, is pushing for, there some extra funding next year, coming out of COVID, we got more things we want to do. So if the competition is key, I think, as long as, I like, that's what I would have done, is just what you said, is to have how much is a static sign that it costs, so you can let the board know, look, if we get $3,000 worth of materials, and Public Works puts up a static sign, then that would be a last resort.
Right.
Okay.
Well, one last quick question is, I'm assuming these are like the monument signs, with two pillars and a sign between them?
Or a solid base that looks even more aesthetically pleasing, made out of brick, like a brick coating around it. So the monument sign would not necessarily be on pillars, it could be, but I think the idea, Kevin could show a couple sketches. When you tuck something into a hill sign like we're likely to do along Eaglemar Road, it's gonna be at an angle. If the benching it's gonna be more solid, it's gonna look more solid and appealing it'd be more practical, if it has, you know, a total look to it.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to point out with that, because I have firsthand experience with this from the restaurant, is because of the slope of that land, I don't know how the height restrictions on those types of signs would work if the sign is perpendicular to the road.
Yeah, there's a measurement, we, you know, the ordinance covers that, at least, you know, I think it probably still does, Bob.
Oh, yeah, the ordinance covers it. I just don't know where you would measure it from, whether it's the uphill side or the downhill side. And in case anybody doesn't know, there's a maximum height restriction on those types of signs, and I just don't know what it is off the top of my head.
The measurement actually comes off of the pavement of the road.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Well, then that answers any concerns I had with that then.
Yeah.
Dave, is there no, are there people on the council who are concerned about the aesthetics or not? Because I know that it was, for a long time, it was the, you know, the idea that signage would take away from the aesthetics of North Park and all of that.
I don't have a good sense of that, to tell you the truth. You know, I just don't have, I mean, I think it would have to be something, you know, again, with the idea that it's a, for lack of a better word, a community-wide sign for all different things. I would think that aesthetics would be important. Now, is it moving from $25,000 to $75,000 important? Probably not. You know, but again, it's all those weighing things, right? I don't have a good sense of kind of the price tag on the aesthetics. But, you know, my personal reaction would be that the aesthetics would be somewhat important, especially because, and Bob, I think we've talked about it before, you know, the vision of that whole area becoming that campus, you know, with all the different interconnected parts kind of operating as one central McCandless thing.
Yeah, it's just that my impression was, and I might be totally wrong, but my impression was that any signage was kind of not really welcome, but that's, I might be totally wrong.
That wasn't the case.
Okay.
Yeah, and remember, I've only been on council for a year and a half, and I'm also a lame duck. So, you know, take whatever I say with a grain of salt, because I just haven't been on for that long, and
You need to get the vote in while Dave's here.
Okay.
yeah. So I don't know, you know, I don't know kind of what the other, you know, what the other considerations on that might be, but, you know, I do have a pretty good sense of what I stated earlier, but the rest of the stuff, yeah, I'm not too, I couldn't really speak to that too much. I could just give you my personal opinion.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So are we all done with the sign? Everyone's spoken their piece. We've beaten that horse to death.
We've beaten that one.
Okay, all right, now, on to the notorious North Hills. Kevin and I went, what are you shaking your head about, Amy? Kevin and I went to the North Park Lodge. We nosed around. We came up with some different plans of the way we could do it, but I think the biggest thing we have to decide is, are we gonna do it?
Well, just to speak to that for real quickly, you know, the lodges compared to the Rose Barn offers the capability to have, if you look at the upstairs, we could do a setup there and you could probably have 150 people there. The downstairs would also work, but it would probably be restricted to what we say, like maybe 50 to 60. And it offers different benefits than the top. The bigger, so I think space-wise, it would work. But like you said, the issue is if we can get any guidance from the township is, I think we have to ask ourselves, there's a lot of work that has to happen in the next 6 weeks to make this work. do we think the conditions are going to continue such that we can have an event like this? The space could work.
Mhm.
It's late in October, so open air, because you can open up into either the courtyard or something like that. But I guess we need to know whether it's worth investing in at this point.
The one piece of guidance that I could give you is that at this time, the town is just following CDC guidance. So if that changes, our feelings will change about it. Right now, it's just a matter of making sure there's social distancing indoors. And, we're urging, we're requesting that people, regardless of vaccination status, be masked. That's how we're handling things. That's how we're handling things for our meeting. I would encourage you to simply say the same thing. You would limit your numbers based on being able to distance. Obviously, I'm going to stay 6 feet away from other people. Toby and Georgette are a household, they stay together. So,
I understand that, but it's just that the nature of this type of thing, one being a presentation, where you're looking at a screen, so you're sitting closer to watch something. And two, that is, it's a social event where people are coming to, to talk and eat and drink and then see a presentation. It may not be, I don't think there's a way to socially distance the presentation.
my feeling about it, as much as I'd like to see it happen, I'm hesitant about it just for that reason. It's a social event.
Yeah.
Having a meeting like we're having today, or like the council, that's a fairly controlled circumstance. And the other concern, and we were talking about yesterday in the community day meeting, you're looking 6 weeks ahead. 6 weeks ahead, we may be talking as if we're on a trajectory that is very positive, or you may, we had county council last night taking a vote on a mask ban. It may get worse. We just don't know. And that's a concern that I have with anything that we're trying to do, unless it's outdoors. And I feel less concerned about an outdoor event than I do any indoor event.
Yeah, Kevin and I talked a lot about it because the way the lodge is set up, I don't know if you've ever been there, but the upper level is basically 3 different rooms. And then downstairs, it's that one room. And we thought, well, if the weather is good, there's a balcony, there's the big patio, there's tables. But if the weather isn't good and we're all in there, I don't know how to make it work. As soon as you take your mask off to eat or drink, then I'll bet that's when it gets dangerous. And if we could make sure that everybody was outside, I would be cool with it. Once we bring people inside, if we do it as an event without food and drink, then we lose the gala effect of it. And it's just, no offense, Amy, but it's like a library presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I think to keep in mind is that, we're going in by October, end of October, we're going to be back into what would normally be cold and flu season.
Yeah.
The metric that governments use is rate of infection. We can't anticipate that infections will be going up. October, November, December, January is flu season. So I'm cautious. I'd like to do it again, but I don't think we should, because it's supposed to raise money. We have to ask for donations. We have to do a lot of things. If it isn't successful, it's not successful. It's a failure. And it was successful last time because we really did have a buzz and we had a lot of people, and it was a fun thing to do. I don't know. So
if we were having a conversation today, our activities committee was talking about having different outdoor events even into later October, but would require interaction and closer proximity. There's hesitancy, and that's outdoors. You know, I can tell you, if I were still the manager in North Fayette and talking about community center events that were indoors, I'd be hesitant to be planning. I would be holding off on or restructuring community events to be outdoors as much as we could and stay away from the indoor events.
We are a mighty but small band. And it's so much falls on the shoulders of us working on this, especially Diane and Kevin. And then all that, us, lugging things, doing things and helping. I think the energy, let's save the energy and find another date. It's, I hate to see it delay until October, but that'd be another discussion, Diane, but I think, it's cool to have it around Halloween.
But does it have to be?
Doesn't have to be. And you had talked about, you're gonna do a reprise, basically, of what you did. It's been a couple of years now. And then you were gonna work on, what was gonna be Nefarious North Hills. Was gonna be
Yes.
The sequel.
Yes.
So you could do Notorious North Hills in the spring, or whenever COVID has released us from its clutches. And then
Bring out the
you can-
Nefarious.
I don't know how far along you are with Nefarious. I'm not trying to create work for you, but you're loving it. You're good at this. We love helping you with it. I mean, you're our team leader on this thing. So I'd be anxious to have Nefarious North Hills next fall and Notorious. We run Notorious in the spring. Just saying.
One thing that was very good about the lodge was, and one thing we had to do with the Rose Barn was, we carried tables and chairs there. It was one of the big ones. It's a sweet setup there for tables, and chairs are already there. So we would have far less of that. We could really focus on, a good setup for the presentation. If it is in the spring, then you can perhaps count on maybe the patio a little bit more. If we know it's going into summer rather than late fall, which is what we're talking about. But that space would be an improvement over
Oh
the
my
Rose Barn.
gosh, it's great.
We could, maybe you want to check and see. I really suggest bagging it. And then is next year not our 5th anniversary?
It'll only be 4, right? It's only our 4 years?
No, it's gonna be 5 since
it?
it opened, yeah.
Oh, 5 cents ago.
17 it opened, right?
Yeah,
So 5th anniversary, so, we try to have something big in May, because that's when we open, that's when we kick it off. So hey, maybe it's a thought.
I mean, we'll have to check. We're moving into wedding season then, and how hotly contested the lodge is for wedding season.
Well,
But-
let's get our thing in now.
That's true, because they only do 1 year at a
Yeah,
time.
we can actually rent
Well,
now.
Thursday.
I think it's a great idea to tie with an anniversary, and then that could be one event, but there could one presentation within the event, but there's other things we can do for our 5th.
Absolutely. So anyway, I know it's kind of going for it a little bit, but get the Rose Barn for Notorious or Nefarious, whatever it turns out to be next fall. Let's try to, will we on any money for this year's reservation?
We did reserve it.
How much was it?
But
$200.
Was it non-refundable?
I think I'm gonna have to go back and read it, but I'll take a look at it.
It might be within 30 days.
Well, tell the county we want to honor their mask.
mandate.
They didn't vote for it, though. That's
But anyway,
Didn't
I
pass.
think it'd be great to try to do 1 or 2 next year.
Okay, so do we need to vote on this, or are we just all in agreement that as sad as it is that we must delay?
I think with Bob's, that's why I wanted to ask your guidance there is, you've got a view
I
of
feel
big
much
picture.
better with that game plan. To hold off for now and then try to get both programs as part of the next year's plan.
Okay,
Did you vote on it to begin with? them nefarious?
No, at the last meeting, we talked about, we were gonna wait a month because I think we were being conscious of it last month, and we were saying, we'll bring the information, we'll go look at the lodge, but we'll come back and ask the group's thoughts
Just
here.
to honor protocol, if you did vote to create a nefarious for 2021, then you should vote to say you review, just take a simple vote, say you're gonna postpone it until further notice.
That's you.
Okay, I propose that we delay our notorious North Hills reprise until the spring of the year in view of COVID.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's sad, though. It's very sad, but I know that Mrs. Soffel was not going to show up if we did it.
And I just have one question. Was it paint day with a lot?
It's just great minds think alike.
I guess so.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. So we have next open miscellaneous topics. Do we want to go over Carolyn's?
Yeah, we can discuss that briefly.
Okay.
Carolyn and Abby and I met on Monday to discuss the proposal that we basically seek sponsorships from businesses. And it's sort of like a tiered setup. You guys saw the draft that Carolyn sent out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And there's 3 different tiers. And, based on our discussion, we think this is a pretty easy thing to implement. We could probably do it via FDPC or administratively, council wouldn't have to vote on it, so. Carolyn will be sending out a final draft eventually.
Great.
Mhm. I think that's a really good idea.
I think the one thing that I want to do in talking to my esteemed colleague here
Mhm.
is that I would want to make sure that, we touch base with our town attorney, make sure that we can legally do this. The general concept that I like the idea of trying to raise funds as much as we can. But there again, I just want to make sure that we are doing it.
In my time, for all of my entire tenure, there was a reluctance to kind of take this extra step of a sponsorship, giving something in return.
Mhm.
That line was broken, with one exception for Community Day, to have a program that could take place as. I did have one incident, the kind of thing you think people would say, what do I get for my ad?
Mhm.
I did have one incident where a business person came in to ask to see me in my office and said, I gave you X number of dollars, I want my variance, zoning variance. I
Whoa.
said, well, you gave your $1,500 for a ad, announcements made, and thousands of people are gonna read this, and, you heard what I said. In exchange for that, I want my variance. I said, oh, well, first of all, I don't vote on variances, there's a zoning hearing board that does. And this conversation's over. So, but I don't mean to be a big downer on this thing, but this is a careful step. So I was whispering, Bob, is there a council policy that's come out for the last few years about sponsorships and so forth?
There's been nothing, but I think it's worthy of David and I bringing that discussion forward, the general concept, so that we don't run afoul of it. I mean, I like the direction you're going with it, and I think that the council would be pleased that the group is moving ahead and thinking in those terms. But I also want to be cautious so that we know that we're not running afoul of anything. I don't want to repeat what Toby had to do.
No, that makes sense. So we'll hold off on that until we hear back. Okay.
And David, you and I can bring that up. To the council.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or topics to discuss? Okay. Then I make a motion that we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. But I don't know that I can.